Sorry, Henry, but your results over the last 4 quarters have not met our standards. We're firing you. I was stunned. I couldn't even formulate a thought. Of course, I've been fired before, although that was many years ago. But I must admit that this time it came as a complete surprise to me. Probably because it was my own wife putting the hammer down. Finally, I was able to speak. Are you firing me? You can't be serious. I'm absolutely serious. Your performance has declined significantly since last year, and we simply cannot afford to keep you in this position. And why exactly are you doing this? Can't that weakling Adams do it himself? I decided to handle this personally to prevent misunderstandings. I signed this decision and didn't want you to threaten to come to me when he told you the news. I thought it was better to solve this myself. Well, this is just wonderful. You need to collect your personal belongings from your desk. Just so you're not surprised, there will be a security guard there, according to protocol. I don't want you to think that the company or I think you'll take anything away. It's just politics. It felt like an iron ball had formed in my stomach. How can you fire your own husband? Seriously? Certainly. Something else. Henry, it wasn't easy. I hope you understand. Doesn't matter. I stood up and left her office. Perhaps we should introduce ourselves. My name is Henry Weston, and or rather, I was, sales manager for AB Products. I'm about 6 feet tall and in pretty good shape, although I've recently started to develop a belly bump that I haven't been very happy with. I'm smart enough, but I never aspired to be a boss. However, I knew how to sell and made good money from it, until recently, as it turned out. My wife, Angela, was the CEO of AB. Yes, that's right, main boss, big boss. Do you understand? She has always been ambitious and smart, so it is not surprising that she took this position. She's 5'6", with straight brown hair that she usually wears in a bun when she works. She's probably about 30 pounds overweight, but that doesn't bother her or me. She's attractive, but not particularly attractive, and we have a good marriage. We've been married 15 years and are both in our early 40s. We have no children, but we had an active social life when our schedules allowed, although I spent a lot of time traveling servicing my accounts, and she worked overtime as required by her position. At work, she uses her maiden name, Jarrett. Our marriage is no secret to employees or even local competitors, but she felt it was best to keep business and personal lives as separate as possible. I was fine with that. We met at work when I was hired in sales 20 years ago. She was already part of the junior executive class and was highly regarded. I won't bore you with the story of the courtship, since it was unremarkable. We met, started dating, fell in love, and got married. She rose through the ranks, and I moved up in the sales department, often earning high sales in a quarter, although I must admit that was a long time ago. Anyway, I felt eyes on me as I left my wife's office, which surprised me because we weren't loud, and I didn't think anyone was listening. I assumed that rumors might have spread. It wouldn't surprise me if Adams, who couldn't become VP of sales, even if he had a paper bag, specifically allowed this to happen. But when I turned the corner to my office, I saw a security guard waiting for me, and I realized that it had probably given me away. I'm so sorry, Mr. Pazigan Weston. I know you wouldn't take anything that doesn't belong to you, but... I raised my hand. It's okay, Vic. That's the way it is, and you just do your job. Do not think about it. I had very few personal items in the office, as I hardly spent any time there. Everything fits easily into the small box provided by the company for my convenience. I quickly looked around, and once I was sure I had everything I wanted, I walked out of the office and left the building for the last time. Mr. Benno Weston, you forgot this photo of your wife, Vic shouted at my back as I walked to the door. No, I haven't forgotten, I answered without turning around. There was deathly silence in the room, in which there were about 15 people when I left. It occurred to me that these people now realized that no job is secure, and then I thought that maybe that was the whole point, or at least part of it. I threw the box in the front seat of the car and drove home. Justified or not, I felt completely betrayed by Angela. I knew my numbers were low, but I had every reason to expect them to rebound in the next couple of quarters. I had promises from several clients that orders would increase, and I assumed that the new rep would probably get credit for turning things around. It's a pity that I wasn't given the opportunity to finish the job. I spent the whole day doing things around the house. I don't think Angela will be too pleased, but I didn't care right now. I wondered how she would be when she returned home. We always tried to keep work and home separate, leaving official matters in the office, but this was obviously different, at least for me. I was lying on the couch watching baseball when she walked through the door around 7:00 p.m. I didn't even bother to look up at her, continuing to watch TV. We always greeted each other when we came home, so my silence probably spoke volumes. "Darling, I'm home. I heard you come in. Any plans for dinner?" So, she apparently decided to take the "what happened at work has nothing to do with our lives at home" line. Interesting. Dinner was usually the responsibility of whoever got home first, but that was before. The events of the day, at least for me, caused a paradigm shift in our marriage, and nothing was the same. "I have already eaten. Have you prepared anything for me?" No. I was still watching TV, so I didn't see how she reacted to me ignoring me, but I didn't think she liked it. Finally, realizing I wouldn't say anything more, she left to change out of her business suit. I imagined that there would soon be another unpleasant conversation when she realized. "Henry, where are your clothes? And your toiletries?" "Where they belong, Angela. In my closet and in my bathroom." She disappeared for a minute while I watched the game again. I knew the conversation wasn't over, but I think my answer confused her, so she came back to check again. She returned quickly. "Henry, there's nothing on your side of the closet, and your side of the sink is empty too. No toothbrush, no mouthwash, no deodorant, nothing." "That's your problem, Angela. You search in your closet and bathroom. I made it very clear that my things are in my closet and bathroom. But they are the same." She fell silent and went back into the corridor. She seemed to suddenly understand what I meant, and when she stormed into the living room with every part of her body burning with anger, I knew she had it figured out. "What the hell are your things doing in the guest room?" "This is not a guest room. This is my room, and I ask you to remember this." "Oh no, you put your things back where they belong, or I'll do it for you, and I won't be so gentle. I'll just move them again, because now I have the whole day free to do what I want." Damn it, I knew it was this. It was a completely legal business decision, and you know it. We've fired people in the past who had better records than you. True, but you weren't married to any of them. She tried to calm down, took a few deep breaths, and finally sat down next to me. "Henry, I had to do what was in the best interests of the company. I may be a CEO, but I also report to people, just like you. The board of directors, the shareholders, they all expect results, and I am responsible for delivering them." "I understand, Angela. You chose the company over me and our marriage. So now the company can keep you warm at night." "Stop acting like a child, Henry. We always kept work and home separate. Always. I did what needed to be done at work, and now that I'm home, we have to put this behind us. We agreed on this a long time ago. What would it look like if I held you to a different standard than everyone else? Like you love your husband? No, that would be outright nepotism and favoritism, and morale in the company would drop. They would consider you untouchable and would have no respect for me. You are not fair." "I don't care about justice, Angela. I'm your husband, not just an employee. I deserve better." "No, Henry, I didn't deserve it. You don't deserve it at work. You couldn't handle it, so I did what I had to do. We've talked about this a million times, about keeping things separate. I can't believe you're acting like this, and I expect you to return your things to our bedroom. And I expect you to be disappointed." I returned to my game, and she returned to her bedroom to finally change clothes, which she had forgotten about, being distracted by my movement. She came back in a simple t-shirt and sweatpants, her "don't even think about sex tonight" outfit. She would be surprised that I had no interest. I heard her rattling around in the kitchen, making more noise than necessary, I'm sure, as she prepared herself something to eat. About 10 minutes later, she came into the living room and dropped something into my lap. I immediately recognized the photo of her from the day she was promoted to CEO that graced my desk. Vic brought this to me after you left. He says you forgot it on the table. I looked at the photo and then at her. I'm ashamed now to admit that my words were intentionally cruel, but at that moment the pain I felt was fresh, and I took it out. I haven't forgotten her. I only took what I still wanted. Exactly. She started crying before she could leave the room and headed straight to her bedroom. I heard the door slam, and to be honest, I didn't care at that moment. I went back to my game and didn't see Angela again for the rest of the night. I woke up in the middle of the night still on the couch with some damn TV store on TV. Now I was wearing a blanket and all the lights were off. A glance at the clock showed that it was 3:27 a.m. Angela would be up in a couple of hours, and I didn't want to be here when that happened. I got up, folded the blanket, and went to my room. CEO Angela Jarrett walked into her office at 7 a.m. as she did almost every morning. She was a firm believer in leading by example, which meant being the first one to arrive in the morning and often the last one to leave at night. It also meant that she had to keep her personal feelings under control and not let them interfere with her job duties. When Jack Adams came to her asking her to fire Henry, she looked at the numbers objectively and came to the same conclusion as Jack. Henry was failing to keep up with sales in his territory and needed to be fired. This has been done many times and has never resulted in a decrease in order volumes in this territory. She suspected that Henry, like so many before him and others after him, had developed a sense of comfort and complacency and simply carried out his duties automatically. Getting new employees into the territory means fresh energy and a new perspective, and the numbers are consistently growing. While Jack didn't specifically ask Angela to handle the termination personally, he made it clear during the meeting that he expected Henry to play the "my wife is the CEO" card. He had fired people before, but didn't want to deal with it, and was glad when Angela offered to do it herself to prevent this situation. At 7:30 a.m., Angela's assistant, Melissa, walked through the door with her coffee and muffin, as she did every morning. They had a supplier who delivered fresh every day, and Melissa always picked out something for her boss. Today, she was full of curiosity. How was it yesterday at home? Terrible. He moved into the guest room, and he didn't forget the photo. He left it on purpose. He said he only took what he still wanted. Did he mean the photograph or you? I'm honestly not sure. We always agreed that work would not affect the home, and I counted on that when making this decision. I think you were right. I'm not happy about this, Angela, but it was reasonable to expect that your husband's dismissal would not be like everything else. So now, nothing. It was still the right decision for the company, and it was my job to make it. I hope that when the anger subsides, he will realize that I was right, and we will return to normal life. As soon as he finds another job, I'm sure everything will be fine. Things remained the same for the next week. I was decluttering the house, tackling projects that needed attention, and I'll admit, in the back of my mind, I kept thinking about preparing the house for sale in the event of a divorce. None of us were going to give in. Although we barely spoke, it was clear that Angela stood by her position that she had made a business decision as part of her job, and I was at fault for not sticking to our agreement to separate work and home. And I continued to think that my husband was not being fired. A marriage deserves more loyalty than a company. Once the home projects were completed, I decided it was time to start looking for a job. Of course, I did this in the evenings. I spent the day watching TV or playing cards while Angela was at work, and then locked myself in the office before she returned home and searched for a job. This continued for another week until Angela tried to change the situation for the better. I was still angry and took every opportunity to try and hurt her for what she did. One Saturday, she knocked on the office door where I was filling out job applications. I didn't say anything, but the door wasn't locked, so she walked in. "Henry, let's do something together today. We need to try to repair our marriage. Please. Could I just accept the offer and plan my way out? Of course I could, but I wasn't ready for it. So I did what any angry man feeling humiliated by his wife would do. I hit back. I'm sorry, I cannot. Suddenly, I found myself looking for a job. Then she said perhaps the worst thing she could have said. Can't you take a day off? There's no rush, darling. I earn enough to support us. I immediately and significantly became angry. I swear I literally felt my blood start to boil. Couldn't wait to throw that in my face, huh? What, Henry? Oh yeah, you're a rich and successful CEO, married to a loser who can't even avoid getting fired by his own wife. I bet you and Adams just get together and laugh your ass off about how you got rid of me. You're probably having sex in your office and making fun of me about what a loser I am. I bet it's just a big joke to all of you. The slap to the face took me by surprise. Henry Weston, I never in my life thought of cheating on you, and you damn well should know it. You can be angry about being fired and believe all you want that I shouldn't have done it, but never, never, violate my integrity by suggesting that I'm cheating on you. She turned on her heel and walked out, slamming the door. I really thought the little glass panels would break, but they held up. The situation was quickly getting worse, and I didn't know how to stop it, and worse, I didn't know if I wanted to. The only positive thing I could say was her reaction to my suggestion that she was sleeping with Adams. The thought of it offended her, and that's exactly what I would expect from an innocent person. So, here it is. I finally got a response to the millions of resumes I sent out. Well, maybe it just seemed to me that there were millions of them. Anyway, it was from a local company called Capstar Sales and Service, and they were looking for a territory representative. They paid a little less than I earned, but that was expected. There was a lot of business travel, even more than I had at AB, but at the moment it was more of a plus than a minus. I think my mood improved noticeably because even Angela noticed it and asked what made me so happy. I have an interview at Capstar today. That's great, honey. I'm sure you will succeed. Call me and tell me how it went. I didn't say I'd call, but I didn't say anything bad either, and when she timidly came up to kiss me on the cheek, I even let her do it. She felt a little lighter on her feet as she walked to her car, and I felt positive vibes for the first time in a long time as I did the same. It's a shame they didn't last. You're so happy today, boss. Any improvements on the personal front? He has an interview with Capstar today. I just know that everything will work out for him, and then everything will finally return to normal. He was nice to me in the morning and even let me kiss him goodbye. It was on the cheek, but that's already something. Still no bedroom, huh? Nothing. I hope at least today everything goes well. I really need to get laid. The call about how the Capstar interview had gone never came, and while it was possible that Henry simply forgot, what was worse was that he simply didn't want to share the good news with her. She went home at 6 p.m., worried about the news, but that would have to wait because Henry wasn't home. She checked her phone again and found no messages. She poured herself a glass of wine and called Henry several times, but received no answer. She couldn't bring herself to eat, so she just restlessly waited for him to arrive. It was already after 10 p.m. when she saw the headlights turning into the driveway, and despite her frustration, she decided that this was not the time to confront him due to the fact that he was so thoughtless and insensitive by not calling, not answering, and being late. She was going to play the role of the supportive wife, even if it killed her, until he walked through the door, staggering. I drove home carefully, taking side streets to avoid police attention. I didn't think I was drunk anymore, but it was still wise to be careful. I parked my car next to Angela's and walked through the door. Angela didn't look too pleased. Are you drunk, Henry? I looked straight into her eyes. Not more. A couple of hours ago I was drunk, but now I think it's all gone. Come on, I'll put you to bed. She took me into what was once our bedroom and began to undress me. I tried to argue that she had brought me to the wrong room, but she ignored me and continued to pull. I got into bed, not caring that it was the same bed we had once shared, and fell asleep before she even got into bed with me. I woke up in the middle of the night with a severe headache, and my wife was practicing all her skills on me. I intended to resist, but it felt too good, and I was too horny and too tired to really object. I'll sort out the consequences in the morning. I got up before Angela and set the coffee to brew. Mostly I was thinking about how best to deal with the events of last night. I had to make it clear that my agreement last night was not the solution to the problem that she may have considered. It turned out that I was worrying in vain. She got out of bed about an hour after me. She didn't say a word until she took her first sip of coffee. I just sat quietly at the table, thinking about the events of last night and wondering how to bring it up. She started first. "Henry, I'm not stupid. I understand that what happened last night means nothing in terms of our situation. They were just two people who needed to get their needs met, and they did it with the only person in the world they could. I would never cheat on you, and I don't think you would cheat on me, despite my checks yesterday, so consider it understood." I nodded and simply said, "Okay. So, can we hope that you got drunk yesterday in honor of the job offer from Capstar?" I smiled sadly, remembering the events of yesterday. It was clearly not in honor of the celebration, which led me to some nameless local bar that I probably won't be able to find again. I had high hopes for the interview, not only to get the job, but also to regain some of my lost pride. But it didn't come true. No, there was no offer. It was all just a farce. "What do you mean?" "Well, as you saw, I was dressed to the nines to impress. The interview was set up with Arthur Cross, their version of Jack Adams. There were several other sycophants in the room, but he was the main one." "Sounds typical." We discussed my work history at length, and he seemed very positive. I had a good feeling about this, especially since we hadn't even touched on my leaving Edge. I expected either an offer or at least a follow-up interview, but then Cross looked me straight in the eyes. "Henry," he said, "while this all looks very good, I'm afraid we just don't have room for a man who can't even meet the needs of his own wife." The whole interview was a long excuse to say this phrase. "Darling, I'm sure he didn't waste your time or his time on something so childish." I turned to look at her. I would have thought so too, but I realized what was going on when the whole room erupted in laughter, and one of the sycophants told him, "I can't believe you said that." So yes, that's exactly what happened. I became the laughing stock of the neighborhood. "Darling, I really—" "Don't say you're sorry, Angela. I don't want to hear it. You never went to the houses of those you fired from AB to apologize to them, and we both know why. Because you're not sorry. You said to yourself that you made a business decision and obviously would do it again. So just save yourself the apology." "Henry, I'm not here as CEO of ABG. I'm here as your wife, and I'm sorry for what those immature assholes did." "Yeah, well, they're right, aren't they?" "No, they are wrong, not in the way they meant it. Last night definitely proved that." "Well, at least I'm good at something." "These idiots mean nothing. Just get on your horse and keep looking. You're too good for this shitty office anyway." "But not good enough for you, huh?" And with these words, I left her requests to come back and talk. Somehow, I managed to keep myself together as I left the Capstar offices. I didn't want them to know how much their little prank hurt me. They easily reinforced my feelings of inadequacy and failure, so that even if I didn't burst into tears in their office, I didn't get very far down the street before I had to pull off the road and pull myself together. After that, I found a bar that had just opened and spent the entire day huddled in a corner, feeling sorry for myself. I've had a few extramarital opportunities approached, including one rather glamorous blonde who I'm sure was a professional, but I'd never seriously considered anything like that. I talked to several women, but I didn't even take a small step. My wedding ring was on display, and they all soon left. I already felt bad enough to add this to my guilt. I stopped drinking around 7 p.m. and ordered food from the bar, which wasn't bad, and it helped soak up the alcohol. My phone rang and buzzed with messages several times, all from Angela, but I ignored them. I just wanted to be alone. When I finally felt like I could drive, I got up and went outside. I took a walk outside to clear my head and think about what I was doing. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have driven, although I doubt I would have been illegally drunk, but I got home okay. The conversation with Angela was completed. I headed back to my room. I hung up my suit, made a mental note to check in the morning to see if it needed cleaning, and went to bed. I don't know what to do, Mel. How can I stay positive and support him in his job search? How can I encourage him and tell him how good he is and that he deserves a great job if I fired him for lack of performance? I don't know, boss. Maybe that's why I never got married. I don't see it as my job to make a man feel better. Even if you yourself made him feel bad? No, I just tell them to get a grip. Then again, maybe that's why I never got married. Angela leaned back in her chair and stared at some invisible point on the ceiling for several minutes, while Melissa sat patiently. Angela had a habit of silently thinking for several minutes on various topics, so this was not unusual. What was unusual was her inability to find a way out or a workaround for the problem. It was this ability that brought her the position of CEO. Mel, I really thought things would go differently. I expected him to be upset about being fired, but that was it. I'm really scared for my marriage right now. This is crazy, Angela. Henry loves you. He's just hurt right now and feels a little depressed that he hasn't found a job yet. When he finds it, everything will be all right, and you will probably become stronger because of it. Says the woman who has never been married. Several weeks and many resumes passed. I was pretty sure that the US Postal Service would actually be profitable this year thanks to my job search, and I didn't have a single response, not even a hint. That humiliating experience at Capstar was the sum of all my efforts in finding a job, and I admit that I became quite depressed about the whole situation, but decided to keep trying. Then my friend called me. His name was Alex, and he worked for Brinkley Enterprises, another local company structured similarly to ABG, to which I had sent several resumes in recent weeks. This was a company that I had heard was actually hiring, so I was confused as to why I wasn't even invited to an interview. Alex wasn't doing the recruiting, but I thought maybe he could put in a good word for me or something. It was around 10:30 a.m., and I was deep in an intense game of online poker when he called and asked if I could meet him for lunch. I agreed. Well, what did I have that was so urgent? We met at a local bar and grill and exchanged pleasantries until our food arrived. We focused on lunch and the afternoon baseball game shown on the screen above the bar, while we ate before he moved on to the reason for the invitation. Henry, I heard about what happened at Capstar. These guys have always been assholes. Don't let them get to you. Yeah, I knew the kind of people they like to hire, but I needed a job, so I had no choice, you know. Understand. But try to take this as I intend. I am your friend. What those guys did was lousy. No one argues with that. But what? The thing is, this is the general opinion in the city. What exactly? What if your own wife fired you then? Well, there's no reason to risk hiring you. I talked to some employers at Brinkley, and they said no one takes your resume seriously, and they heard it from other companies in town, even those actively hiring. It hit me hard. I at least hoped that these companies simply did not have open positions, but to hear that I was not even being considered for real positions was a knife in the heart. I tried not to react directly in the restaurant, but I also couldn't bring myself to respond. I was just thinking about what Alex said. When I felt like I could handle it, I stood up, threw a 20 on the table, and left, thanking Alex for telling me what was going on behind the scenes. I drove home, and suddenly sobriety seemed like a bad idea. I sat down on the sofa and began diligently to get my supply of beer. I was halfway through the 12-pack when Angela got home a little earlier than usual. She didn't immediately understand the situation, but it took her a little time. "Henry, I'm home." "Here she is," I said with more enthusiasm and volume than necessary. Small woman. She looked around and saw beer cans scattered around and quickly took in the scene. I already said she's smart. "You are drunk." It's me. It's me. God, you stink. I can smell it from here. Have you even washed yourself today? Of course, I washed myself. Right before I went to lunch with Alex. Did you have lunch with Alex? What did he say? Anything available at Brinkley? Of course, a lot of things. They hire everyone, including salespeople. This is cool. Will Alex help you with this? No, he doesn't do hiring. I know that, honey, but I'm sure he has some connections, some influence. I'm sure there is, but not enough to get me a job. No, he simply told me that I had become a laughing stock in the sales industry here and that no one was taking me seriously. What? You can't be serious. Oh, but I'm serious. It turns out that being fired by your own wife pretty much means you're worthless, at least as an employee. They'll hire kids straight out of college with no experience and people who haven't brought in as many sales in their entire lives as I did in one of my best years, but old, useless Henry Weston isn't even worth a second glance. I seriously doubt. Damn it, Angela, I shouted, silencing her. Just stop, okay? Stop pretending you can't believe I can't find a job. You were the one who fired me because I didn't meet your standards. My own damn wife fired me and can't understand that everyone else has the same opinion. You ruined my damn career, Angela, for your job, so stop trying to put a positive spin on it. He's gone. I'm sure it was a combination of too much alcohol and not eating, plus the sudden release of anger and emotion, but I suddenly realized I was going to feel sick. The nearest place was behind the door to the courtyard, and that's where I headed, barely making it out the door before the contents of my stomach made a quick and violent return. I fell to my knees as wave after wave erupted from my stomach and splashed onto the lawn. I felt Angela kneel next to me, trying to help and calm me, muttering words of comfort, but it only made me angry and I pushed away from her. Don't touch me, Angela. It is your fault. No more draws. You decided that your job at Abbey was more important to you than me, and you completely destroyed me. Just stay away from me. I'll take care of myself. Understood? Yes, Henry. I understood. I do not apologize. I rose to my feet and staggered into the house. I went to my bathroom, knowing that I usually have 2 bouts of vomiting once it starts. I locked the door and positioned myself in front of the toilet, but to my surprise, nothing else happened, even dry cramps. I heard a knock on the door as I sat there, followed by, "Henry, are you okay? Couldn't this bitch leave me alone to die? Jesus, I'm not dead. Honey, please, I love you. We need to find out." I didn't answer. What would be the point? Obviously, she lived in some kind of fantasy world where she could fire her husband and everything in life would remain as it was. I just sat there for a few more minutes until it became too uncomfortable. I thought Angela had already left since I hadn't heard anything from outside the door for a while, so I opened the door to go to my room. I made a mistake. Honey, I know you feel bad, but we need to figure it out. We can't continue like this. Will you fire me as a husband too? No, honey, I won't fire you. But I also don't want to live like this for the rest of my life. I hurt you, I understand, but you have to believe that I really thought everything would be okay. I would never have imagined that things would go the way they have now. Is it true? I asked in disbelief. Has it ever occurred to you that firing your own husband would lead to pain and mistrust in your marriage? Has it ever occurred to you that being fired by my own wife would have negative consequences for my psyche and self-esteem? Has it ever occurred to you that companies here wouldn't want to hire someone who was fired by his own wife? Christ and Estella, you are an incredibly smart woman. I refuse to believe that you were really that stupid. I left her again, which happened more and more often. Then I did something really stupid, which can only be explained by the fact that I was full of anger and frustration that suddenly needed to be released. I was so angry at Angela, at the world, at the whole damn situation, and I really wasn't thinking. I walked into my room and slammed the door hard, knocking a couple of knickknacks off the small shelf placed near the door. They landed safely on a fluffy carpet, but for some reason this angered me. I picked up the little ceramic figurine, where the hell did it come from, and threw it with force into the far wall, where it broke into millions of pieces. This will teach her to fall off the shelf. Unfortunately, this only inflamed me even more, and with nothing else worth throwing within reach, I stayed where I was and screamed at the top of my lungs. Practitioners of primal scream therapy would be so proud. Then I turned around and hit the wall with all my might. To be honest, I did expect the drywall to be a little more pliable, although that could have been a result of seeing guys punching holes in walls on TV. This was probably not the best source of preliminary ideas. At this stage, I let out another scream. One is undoubtedly less primary than the previous one. I fell onto the bed, clutching my hand, and really hoped that my bones wouldn't turn to dust. I can only assume that Angela could tell one scream from another because she flew into the room. "Henry, are you okay? Oh my God." My hand was already swelling and turning purple, and one of my fingers was severely deformed and pointing in the wrong direction. She told me not to move, as if moving was at the top of my list, and ran out of the room. A few moments later, she returned with an ice pack from the freezer and a kitchen towel to wrap it around. "Come on, honey, you need to go to the hospital." It was too painful to resist, so I just went with her. She carefully placed me in the passenger seat of her BMW and quickly drove to the local hospital. Apparently, it was a night for stupidity, because there was a decent line and people with the types of injuries that appear right after someone says, "Hey, look what I can do." Angela completed all the paperwork. Of course, I couldn't write, so I had no choice. And then I had that favorite experience, sitting in the waiting room all night. We got home well after midnight. My arm and wrist were freshly wrapped in a cast, and I was pumped full of painkillers. I was exhausted, despite taking several naps during the night. Angela helped me out of the car, which only added to my feeling of helplessness. She tried to pull me into her bedroom, but I just pushed her away without a word and went to my room. I may have been the one who hit the wall, but in my mind, it was mostly her fault. She didn't say a word when I locked myself in my room. "You don't really want to go home, do you, boss?" So obvious. You never went out after work before, but now you do it 2 or 3 times a week. Seems pretty clear. Is it that bad? It's just falling apart, Mel. It's been 6 weeks since he broke his arm, and he hasn't done a damn thing. He mostly sits at home and drinks. He looks like he's depressed. Yes, but he doesn't talk to me. He won't go to a counselor either. I tried everything I could to get him to do something. He probably wouldn't even take a bath if I didn't force him. I'm trying to support him until he figures it out on his own, but I'm not going to smell him while I'm doing it. Is he still looking for a job? Does not look like it. I think he thinks there's no point in it. He does not do anything. Hell, he doesn't even mow the lawn. I had to hire a service. So now, I don't know, Mel. I guess I just need to be patient. It's that worst part of for better or for worse, so that's all I can do. But it's becoming increasingly frustrating. I was lying on the couch watching the Red Sox beat the Yankees when Angela came home. I drank most of the day. Heck, I've been drinking for most of the last month. Obviously, there was no point in looking for a job, and as Angela once pointed out, she was making enough money to support us. I started to think that drinking on the couch might be a good way to spend the rest of my life. Drinking again, yes, Henry. It was not a question. There is nothing better. Yes, actually there is. You could be looking for a job, or fix something in the house that needs fixing, or at least just wash the damn clothes. What the hell happened to you? You're pathetic, that's what. I can't believe the man I married let a few setbacks stop him. In fact, the man I married wouldn't stop. I don't know who you are, but I'm sure you're not the Henry Weston I married. He was a man. She turned around and walked into her bedroom, leaving me to stare after her as she left the room. Pathetic? This bitch called me pathetic. Well, to hell with it. This whole damn situation is her fault. Who the hell does she think she is? If she hadn't fired me, none of this would have happened. I returned to the game. I woke up the next morning wanting to go to the toilet. I was still on the couch, having fallen asleep at some point during the night. I didn't remember turning off the TV, so I assumed Angela had done it. A quick glance towards her side of the room showed that she had already left for work. Not surprising since it was almost 8 a.m. I was able to lower the belt and begin the process of relief. Even though the cast was off, I was still wearing a brace to stabilize my arm, and this made things like buttoning my pants difficult, so I started wearing things with an elastic band, so I could just pull them on and off. As I stood there draining the main vein, I saw my reflection in the mirror. I looked like crap. My hair was dirty and too long, longer than it had ever been. I hadn't shaved for several days and was wearing an old, torn t-shirt. I looked like a homeless person, and without Angela, I probably would have been. For the first time, she was right. I really was pathetic, and it was time to end it. I undressed and took off the bandage. I got in the shower and spent a good 30 minutes cleaning myself thoroughly. I'll show her. I went to my hairdresser. Yes, I said to the hairdresser. Norm Jones was a 60-year-old man and a relic of the past. There was no style here, there was a haircut. He could do a few different things, but he was trained in the Army and still cut hair to Army standards. So, expect a short haircut. I sat in the chair and he gave me a full treatment, including a hot towel. I left Norma's store feeling much better. I headed home to start looking for work again. Obviously, I won't find anything here, so I'll have to expand my search. I didn't know how far I would have to go to get rid of the reputation Angela had created for me, but whatever it took, I was going to do it. It was time to regain my courage. Angela Jarrett left her office at 7:00 p.m. She needed to catch up with work and was in no hurry to get home. The situation has improved a little, but not significantly. Henry finally started taking care of himself a few weeks ago and was spending time on the computer again. She assumed that at least part of this time was spent looking for work. She parked the car and entered the house. She still expected to see him drunk on the sofa every evening, but again the living room was empty. She glanced towards the office and the lights were off, so she knew he wasn't there. She went into the corridor and saw the light in his room, but the door was closed, so she first changed out of her work clothes and then went to knock on his door. Enter. Angela opened the door and was amazed to see the suitcases on the bed and what he was packing. What's happening? I found a job. Angela was delighted, forgetting about her suitcases for a moment. Honey, this is great. I knew you could do it. Where? When do you start? I start on Monday. It's a company called Hanover's. I haven't heard of them. Is this some kind of startup? No. They have been in business for over 50 years and are one of the largest companies in Charlotte. Angela's smile quickly faded. Charlotte? You mean Charlotte, North Carolina? Yes. Henry, it's 1,600 kilometers from here. Will you have territory here? No. I will be working in a territory in Georgia. Henry, the Abbey offices are here. I can't just move to North Carolina. This is fine. I didn't expect you to move. He continued to get ready while Angela realized the meaning of what he had said. Are you leaving me, Henry? Getting divorced and moving to North Carolina. Moving to North Carolina, yes. Divorce, no. So what then? Nothing. I'm focused on starting a new job. That's all. I didn't even think about anything else. Maybe I'll understand something there. Who knows? And you just expect me to accept it? I don't expect anything, Angela. Nothing. Do what you need to do. I'll be staying in a hotel at the company's expense for a few days until I find an apartment. I'll give you the address so you can file for divorce if you decide. So that's all. Are you just making this decision without discussing it with me? Practically. You yourself called me pathetic and told me to be a man, so that's what I did. Thanks to you, I couldn't find a job anywhere nearby, so I kept expanding my search until I found one, and it happened to be in Charlotte. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an early flight. Angela was overwhelmed by the news that her husband was leaving her, and then just let her go as if she didn't matter, which apparently doesn't matter to him anymore. But he wasn't divorcing her, which was good news. Well, she was pretty sure that was good news. Okay, he was upset and hurt again by what she said that night a few weeks ago. In fact, this was her plan, hoping that the humiliation would inspire him to prove otherwise. It worked too well, apparently. She returned to her room and sat on her bed in shock. What the hell happened? Just a few months ago, she had a great job and a husband whom she loved and who loved her. Sure, she still had a job, but it seemed to come at a cost to everyone else, and for the first time, she wondered if it was worth it. I finished packing the things I would need into suitcases to take with me to the airport. I packed the other items into boxes and shipped them. I took them to the Up store earlier today. The facade of indifference that I showed Angela during the conversation was, of course, a pretense. Even when I was angry at her for what she did, I still loved her desperately. But sometimes you need to take care of yourself first, and that's what I did. I couldn't be a good husband to her or anyone else if I felt the way I did. I wasn't planning on filing for divorce, but I fully expected her to do so I tried to make it seem like I didn't care. Reclaiming my masculinity did not involve begging my wife to stay with me while I did it. Besides, if she hadn't fired me, we wouldn't be in this situation. The flight to Charlotte was uneventful, and I was first taken to the Hyatt Hotel, just a few miles from the Hanover's offices, and checked into my room. I then went to the offices to meet John Hanover Roman III, grandson of the original John Hanover who founded the company. I talked to him on the phone and did a video interview, but this was the first time I met him in person. I spent my first month on the job learning from their Western South Carolina representative, Kyle Bishop. He taught me well about the way Hanovers preferred to do business, including some tricks he used to speed up his paperwork. He also proved to me that he is a great ladies' man. He said he was married, and the ring on his finger confirmed it, but that didn't stop him from regularly picking up women. Since we shared a room while traveling, he would send me text messages letting me know to stay away from the room for a while. He had a code, "Let me buy you a cup of coffee." He thought that if his wife saw it, it would seem harmless. Code that you can return. I hope you enjoyed your coffee. Opportunities for me were also abundant. At first, Kyle tried to find pairs of women so we could both have one, but when I refused, he focused on singles. Of course, this left me alone most of the time, drinking all this coffee he bought me, and they tried to hit on me a few times too. I simply showed my ring and thanked them for their interest. Regardless of the state of my marriage, I was a married man. I started with enthusiasm when I went to work in Georgia. I spent a lot of time researching Hanover's products and their features and came up with some creative ways to present them. Sales were active and, obviously, significantly exceeded the previous representative in this region. A month later, Jack Hanover Roman II called me. He was the chairman and, of course, the father of Jack Roman III. He wanted to personally congratulate me on how well I did and how glad he was that I was joining their team. He noted that the previous rep had relaxed his efforts a bit, and I was a welcome change. I thanked him for his kind words and assured him that I would continue to work hard. I spent another month mostly on the roads. I sent additional samples to wherever I was. I visited all the major clients in my territory during this month to introduce myself and launch orders. Finally, I returned to my apartment and felt extremely lonely at night. Even though Angela and I haven't been getting along for a long time and we haven't slept in the same bed, I found comfort in her presence in the house, and I was acutely aware of her complete and utter absence. Crap. I really missed her. I decided to improve my social life, so I tried to get to know the neighbors in the complex and also make friends among the employees at Hanover's. I focused on the support staff since they weren't traveling, figuring it would be easier to coordinate schedules. I was glad that my efforts resulted in good friendships. I had been working for almost 4 months when there was an unexpected knock on the door. I paused the Carolina Panthers game and opened the door to see Angela and her travel bag. Angela? Hello, Henry. At that moment, and fortunately before anything could happen, a man came out from the hallway into the living room to see what was going on. This is my neighbor, Debbie. At that moment, a man emerged from the hallway, entering the living room to see what was going on. And her husband, Greg. We were watching the Panthers game, I said, pointing to the TV. Guys, this is my wife, Angela. Debbie's eyes lit up. I knew you looked familiar. Your photo hangs on his wall in the hallway. I winced, for some reason not wanting Angela to know about this. Debbie stood up and shook Angela's hand, and Greg followed suit. Angela's face became noticeably less angry. "Come on, honey," Debbie said. "I think these two need to talk." "Of course, honey," Greg answered disappointedly, looking at the score 28-28 frozen on the screen, showing less than 2 minutes left in the game. The game was devastating in any case. We were silent until they left. Angela stood with her back to the door and just looked at me as Debbie whispered "good luck" to me as she closed the door behind her. We became good friends, and I told them most of my story. "What are you doing here, Angela?" "I'm here for 2 reasons, Henry. The first one is quite simple. I need to get laid." "Is this what you came to Charlotte for?" "Yes. The only man in the world I want to have sex with lives in Charlotte, so here I am." "And you think this is a good idea?" "I think it's a great idea, and I think you think so too, if you're not going to say no." "No, I think I won't refuse." She smiled and took my hand, leading me down the hallway to the bedroom. We had sex. He was taking out his aggression on me, right? A little. "If that's what I get, maybe I should piss you off more often," she said, with a small laugh at the end. Of course I got angry. "So, am I not enough for you? Do you have to make me angry for you to like it?" "Damn it, Henry, it was a joke, okay? I've always loved what you do to me, but I admit that I enjoyed the way you pounded me into the mattress now. Stop trying to turn everything I say into an insult." "Fine. Anything. You said there are 2 things you want to do while you're here, right? The other thing I need to do is shopping." "Is Charlotte some kind of shopping mecca that I didn't know about?" "No, but I need a toothbrush and such things, plus clothes for visits." "What are you talking about, Angela?" "I plan to visit you every 2 weeks, probably alternating between long and short weekends. I'll probably have to work a little while I'm here, but we'll still have a lot of time together. And I don't want to worry about fees every time, so I'm going to buy some things to leave here." "Are you going to fly here every 2 weeks? All you have to do to stop me is file for divorce." "But I love you, honey. I have always loved you and always will, and spending retirement without you is unacceptable. I worked hard to become a general director, and I'm not going to give it up, at least not yet. In a few years, I'll be ready to retire, and between my stock options and the golden handshake I'll receive for making the company as profitable as it is, I won't be working anymore. So you and I will have a separate marriage for a while." "You're making some assumptions, aren't you?" "Hey, military people do this all the time, and they don't even see each other every 2 weeks like we do. And you can make my trip easier by coming to my home." "Do you think I have forgiven you?" "Of course, I forgave. My photo is hanging on your wall, remember? And don't think I didn't see that photo next to the bed when we walked in here. You miss me as much as I miss you, and I know that you still love me. Don't even try to deny it." "Yes," I admitted. "I love you, but—" "Nothing but. Look, the fact is that while I was acting like a bitch, you were acting like a complete asshole. I talked to your clients, Henry, and they told you how much they love me, right?" "Yes, they said that, at least as a nice person to have a drink with, but in terms of sales, they weren't so complimentary." "What?" "They all admitted that they thought you were doing your job mechanically, but they were afraid to say anything because they knew we were married. I learned that none of them were aware of all the products we released last year. There are always things that are not suitable for some clients. It's none of your business. You can tell them you think something else will be better, but you still have to tell them about all the products. Each of them ordered the things you kept from them, and they all liked them. The orders Wes received in his first quarter were great. Of course, thanks to the foundation that I laid. Do not do that. Don't try to take away his credit. They told me about the orders you promised them, and they gave them to us plus a lot more thanks to Wes. They had nothing but praise for the work he does and the energy he puts into the job. You know, I'm obviously good at this. I'm showing great results at Hanover's." "Oh, I know. I've spoken to John Roman III several times, and he is delighted with how hard and conscientious you work. How you worked at AG and how Wes works now. Face it, honey, You're just tired and decided you can count on being the CEO's husband and decide to spend more time partying than selling. But I'm proud of what you're doing here, really proud. I had to admit that she was right. I was angry at what she did, but I realized that I didn't work as hard as I used to. I don't think I thought I was safe because of her, but maybe subconsciously I thought so, and I probably thought that my clients would give their best orders simply because I had worked with them for a long time. I will try not to make this mistake again. Did you mention something about being a bitch? She chuckled at my obvious change of topic. Yes, honey, I mentioned it. The fact is, you deserve to be fired, and I think you know it, even if you don't want to admit it. But you are my husband, and you are right that I should have paid more attention. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I should have given you the opportunity to find another job first, so that it would be a voluntary resignation and not a termination. I was so focused on looking at your work objectively that I lost sight of the fact that I'm your wife, too, and I'm sorry, honey, I really am. But I never stopped loving you, and you're stuck with me until you say otherwise. We'll get through this as long as it takes, and then we'll retire and do what we have to do, until we die together. 5 years later. To my surprise, we made it through. True to her word, Angela visited me every 2 weeks. The schedules did not always coincide, but the problems were minor, and soon I started visiting her on many of the weekends between her visits, if that makes sense. Our sex life has been revived. There were many weekends that we spent completely naked and did not leave the apartment. We ordered food, or I stocked up on groceries in advance. Several couriers were stunned when one of us answered the door not fully dressed. Angela took Abbott to new heights and received a significant golden handshake when she retired a few months ago. Melissa is still working there, helping the new CEO, and she and Angela keep in touch. They became very good friends. Angela moved to North Carolina. We sold our old house and bought a new one here. I still work, albeit part-time. The idea of retiring in his 40s didn't seem appealing. I felt like I was too young for that, but I'm not on the road anymore. I provide sales training and consulting to John Roman II and John Roman III on products and services. This leaves plenty of time for a life of leisure, which Angela enjoys, and I have no problem taking time off when she wants to go on a long trip. I will soon be 50 and plan to fully retire at that age. We discussed what we could do, including possibly moving abroad. We've found some amazing places on our travels and made friends that we stay in touch with. Overall, I'm looking forward to the opportunities ahead of us. I'm not sure what the final outcome will be, but I'm sure Angela and I will do it together. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one.